Hey everyone, and a massive welcome to the next episode here on InfoSec Live of the CISO Experience, where we get to engage with and learn from the cybersecurity industry's leadership in a live setting with open and honest conversations. And for those that are new to the channel, my name's Simon Linstead, and I'm the founder of the InfoSec Live community who can't get his words out today, and also your host for this show. Sharing stories and best practices over the last few months has led to nearly 6,000 hours of our content being viewed on YouTube by over 2,300 of you subscribers. So a huge thank you for your engagement. And if you would like to support the wider InfoSec Live community, or indeed just buy me a decaf coffee, we do have a few ways you can show your appreciation. We have the ability to purchase super stickers in the chat if you'd like your question bumped up to the top, and 3 tiers of membership allowing you to show your support in any way that you can. But whether you join or not, being here and engaging with our content is what really matters. And if you're watching this live, please do like and subscribe. We want to make sure these events are as interactive as possible. So also make sure you drop any questions you have in the chat. And for my aging eyesight, please mark them with a Q so I can pick them up, because it's you, our audience, who make these events so special. And I just want to take a moment before we start to thank our amazing show sponsor for helping us grow and provide even more free and engaging content. And for us, sponsorship is about partnering with the right organizations. And in my humble opinion, No Name Security is the only company out there taking a complete proactive approach to API security, working with 20% of the Fortune 500, and covers the entire API security scope across 3 pillars: posture management, runtime security, and API security testing. They're backed by leading venture capital firms including Lightspeed, Georgian, the Syndicate Group, ForgePoint, Next 47, Insight Partners, and Cyberstarts, and have raised $220 million, achieving unicorn status only 1 year out of stealth, and that is some achievement. They're privately held, remote first, with headquarters in Silicon Valley, offices in Tel Aviv and Amsterdam, and a link to find out more about how No Name Security can help your organization is in the comments below. And from looking on their website earlier, if you're looking for work, actually, there's some jobs going on their careers page, so make sure you check that out. But today, the main point of this, not me waffling on at you, is to get in front of and have an engaging conversation with another of our industry's leaders. And this time it's Craig Herter. Craig's worked in the IT industry for over 25 years and has focused on security for the past 15. Started in security as a forensic analyst and incident handler, and after doing that for several years, he's moved into leadership in the InfoSec space and has been leading security teams in different capacities for the past 10 years. He's got experience in higher education, healthcare, software companies, and state government, as well as some non-profit too, and he's passionate about creating the Office of No instead of the Office of No, which I love. And Craig currently serves as the Senior Director of Information Security for the State of Colorado Governor's Office of Information Technology. Craig, we really appreciate you giving up the time to come and share your insights with the community. Let's stop wasting any more time and let's bring you on. If I can find the graphic to do that. Here we go. Finally, well, Craig, got you on. That was full on, wasn't it? And do you know what? After the 2 days I've had, I'll just get this out of the way because my head is up my backside a little bit today. I've been clearing my elderly mum's house. She's at final stages of Parkinson's, lived in the same house for over 50 years, my childhood home as well. So I've been going through there the last couple of days, clearing out the final bits, and it's been a bit of an emotional roller coaster. So if I fluff my lines and forget any words today, I apologize. But Craig, a pleasure to have you on.
Well, thank you. And I'm sorry to hear that you're having to do that. It's part of life, right?
But
it's kind of the story of everything we deal with. I mean, life and security and how they all go together. I mean, it's just everyday life. Security needs to be part of everyday life. And You're just providing security to your aging mom, and you're doing what you need to do to help her move into the next stage of life. And it's really
my favorite point on that is it's about mindset, isn't it? And how you deal with it, which also relates back to the security space, I think, and making sure you're in the right frame of mind, especially doing a stressful job like yours, I expect can be quite difficult. For me, it's meditation 3 times a day. I've got 6 children, so I lock myself in a room, get away from them for a bit, just have some peace and quiet.
So I'm up at 5 a.m. every day for an hour doing exactly that, just kind of clearing my mind, clearing my schedule, getting myself focused on what's needed for the day. Because the thing about security is no 2 days are the same, which is both good and bad. You just need to be on your A game at all times, ready for whatever's going to be thrown at you, at the wall, over the wall, under the wall, however it's going to come at you. You just need to be ready to respond and react appropriately.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So look, I gave a bit of a background on you before I brought you on. Could you just tell the viewers a little bit more about yourself and I suppose what's driven you to get into security in the first place?
Well, some of you might recognize an accent. I was born and raised in South Africa, moved to the United States in 1993, and have been here since then. I've worked in many different fields, many different facets, and IT is actually my second career. I had an initial career in public speaking and motivation, etc. Type of field, and then moved into IT. I was working in nonprofits and moved into IT and just kind of learned skills along the way. I started learning IT before Google, and I spent a lot of time in libraries, spending a lot of time reading through books and learning how to do things, and taught myself a lot of skills that way. And then as I progressed to that, started my own business, supported small businesses because I saw a great niche for that. And then we had that fun thing called the 2000 IT crash.
Yep.
And
I was
my
in
business
financial services at that point and I remember it well.
my business went in the toilet and disappeared. I lost all my clients and went back into different sectors to just become an employee again,
Yeah.
and worked in IT, became an IT administrator, managed exchange environments, managed litigation firms, and all sorts of fun stuff. And then got an opportunity to move into information security and kind of fell into it. I applied for the position, said, well, here's a Hail Mary and let's see what comes of this. And they said, yeah. So I said, let's do this, and jumped into forensics. I love puzzles. I
Yeah.
love building puzzles. So forensics and incident handling just really fed that part of me that enjoys solving. And then I also am a bit of a storyteller. So I
I
liked
can
finding
tell.
out what happened. And then I got to tell the story and say, this is what happened. This is what they did. This is how they did it. And this was the outcome. So it kind of touched in all those areas. And then as time progressed, I've always found something in security, and that is the security community needs to and has done a good job of it, but could improve upon replicating ourselves. We really need to do the work of bringing up the fresh skill sets and the new people coming out of college, coming out of different avenues that just have an aptitude for security. And that's kind of what I saw is I wanted to replicate myself in other people. So I found that the best route to take that was to move into a leadership role and then use that leadership role to become a mentor and start mentoring people and showing them the ropes and teaching them how to do the skills. And that's been my story. It's just find someone, find them with the aptitude, grow them to the best of my ability, point them at resources and say, go be the best version of yourself.
Well, do you know what, Craig? I know for a fact there's loads of people watching this who'd bite your arm off for that opportunity, who are trying to break in. I see we've got Liam in the audience. He's trying to break in at the moment. Richard, who's in there, or Splodge, he's just broken in. Gregor, he's an existing professional. Just a quick shout out to everyone for jumping in and tuning in. It is much appreciated. Please make sure you do drop any questions you have in the chat. But I want to jump back to something you mentioned about your previous career, public speaking, right? How important and how much have you used that in the career you're in now, your previous experience?
There's something to be said about being able to be persuasive and passionate about what you're trying to
Yes.
sell, because 90% of our job in security is actually not securing the environment. It is socializing and evangelizing, to use that word, security
Yeah.
concepts and principles to those around us. So what I found is my background in public speaking has given me a platform and an ability to really reach out to people and connect with them in many different ways. I've even sold cars. I sold cars for a while. I was a car
Me too.
salesman. So I mean, you learn skills, you learn how to overcome objections, you learn all of these different things about how to bring someone over to your side of the conversation. And it's all that active listening, those crucial conversation skills, building that pool of shared meaning and all those other skills. But it all boils down to delivery. If you can't deliver your message not received. And that's the key.
Well,
I think
it's back to something else you said, which is the ability to tell a story. And I think no matter what industry you're in, what profession you're in, the ability to tell a story is paramount. And especially in an industry like information technology, where everything is so complex, the ability to tell that story in words and meanings that people actually understand, I think is something that no disrespect to some of the leaders in the community, but it's an area that a lot of people fall down in. And whilst I haven't got the technical background you've got, I've sold mobile phones, booze cruises, financial services, cold called cars, like you. And there's a speech on YouTube by Steve Jobs called Connecting the Dots. And I'm 48, so 48 this year, no spring chicken anymore. And I've done some really shitty jobs, right? Which I thought were shitty jobs. But I tell you what, all of that knowledge now has all come back to help me in the career that I'm in now. And a big part of this show and a big part of the InfoSec Live community is trying to help people realize how transferable some of those skills are. So I'd love to talk about that a little bit more. And Richard, I think, has put a question in there. Where's it gone? So all the way back. Here we go. Oh no, it's Gregor. Sorry, Gregor. So you said about growing someone earlier on. You made a comment about that. So his first question is, how would you grow someone? What's your opinion on that?
Well, you got to start somewhere. In everything, you've got to do an assessment, find out where the baseline is, find out where they're at, and kind of assess where there are gaps, and then just find opportunities. There are tons of resources. There are a ton of educational materials. There's everything from LinkedIn Learning to Pluralsight to Rangeforce to so many different avenues that are really pretty affordable for just gathering your theory and getting some lab work and things along those lines. And then there's just finding someone and saying, hey, come here, come sit with me. Let's talk for a while. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about this. Tell me how much you understand this. What do you understand this component of networking? Well, no. So yes or no. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about why that's important to know. Let's talk about why it's important to have multi-factor authentication. Why is CIS important? Why you just find these different concepts that intrigue somebody. And I actually see Gregor's additional question here: how to convey and sell difficult or important topics. I think what these go hand in hand is you really break it down into it's that age-old saying, how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. The key to being effective is knowing which bite to take. And that's what you got to do, is you got to find out what is most effective and what is going to convey the most value to your listener or to your audience. And it oftentimes means understanding their motivation. And having sold cars, you'll understand this, Simon. Oftentimes someone's going to walk in the door as a no, and it's your job as a salesperson to turn them into a yes. And most of that turning in from a yes is to understand 9 out of the 10 no's that they're walking in the door with, so that you can say, well, no, that's not really true. How about, have you thought about it? Have you considered this? What about this option? And you just find ways to show them a different side of the equation. And that's the story of security, is most people want to be secure. They just don't understand how to be secure. So it's our job to really sell the value of, hey, I'm just helping you do what you want to do in the first place. Let's add these 2 or 3 little things to what you're doing on a daily basis. And those 2 or 3 little things are going to grow into 4 or 5 little things over time as you just begin to gather momentum. It's just phenomenal how you can change. I have the privilege. I have the privilege here at the state of Colorado of running a veterans transition program. What that is we take veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces and we bring them in for 9 months in a paid internship. I put them with my security operations center staff, and I train them to be SOC analysts. And at the end of those 9 months, we either hire them on to become a SOC analyst, or we help them find jobs in the private marketplace. And in the last it's going on 2 years now. In the last 2 years, I've successfully brought about 18 veterans from being not cyber intelligent to being a cyber employee at some company, whether it's with us or some other entity.
I think I love that, and I love the work you're doing with veterans, and I'll tell you for why. One of the biggest things I hear people complain about in this industry is the lack of critical thinking skills. And I think a lot of people who've been in the military, depending on, I suppose, what their roles were, they've already been taught that. And again, this comes up a lot on these live streams, but the whole global education system is failing us a little bit. I mean, I've got 6 children, one of whom's left school, one who's doing his like finals at age 17, 18, 14-year-old, 6-year-old, 4-year-old twin. So I've kind of seen every stage, and they just teach you to pass exams. And going back to what you said, about having those important conversations with people and asking the questions and finding out what's important to them. I mean, relating that to the car sale, is super important, so you can close those doors and handle those objections. But when it comes to, in my humble opinion, breaking into this industry, there's a lot more value in speaking to people who are already in, finding out, what their day-to-day job's like, and also getting a clear understanding of where your skills are at the moment and where your gaps are. Because for me, I got carried away with the whole, you can be a pen tester in 6 months and be the best this. And, I did get carried away with that, and I failed miserably at it. I failed my OSCP, and I failed it because I didn't know anything about networking, because I had a huge gap. But I didn't know that. Maybe I did. Maybe I was just hoping I could pass it without. But I think
sometimes you just got to swing for the fences, my friend.
Yeah, you have. I've done too many swings for too many fences. That's the problem. But I think it's important to be honest with yourself as well, isn't it?
Yes.
And do that self-analysis at the start of a journey before you start paying for exams and paying for courses and paying for boot camps. Because, as you rightly said earlier on in the conversation, there's an awful lot of stuff out there that's free and affordable as well.
Yeah. And my advice is take advantage of it. There is nothing wrong with learning. Whatever you gain as knowledge is going to help you in some area, in some role at some point. So do the work, take the courses, grab the certs, do all of that stuff, but also find what employers are looking for are not just book smarts anymore. No. They're not just looking for a degree. They're not just looking for you to have your CISP and other letters at the end of your name. What they're looking for is, do you have practical experience? Yeah. Can you do the work? And that's what you got to find. And that's what our industry is working and realizing as a whole. And a lot of conversations I'm hearing is a lot of organizations are starting these internship programs where they're bringing people that are in high school or in college or like I'm doing, bringing them fresh out of the military and showing them how to do the job.
Yeah,
because that helps them do the work, and that is a marketable skill, and that's what you need to focus on.
Oh, absolutely. Liam, I know, Liam, you are, I believe, I hope I don't get this wrong, I think you are a more mature gentleman like myself transitioning into this industry. I'll say that in the politest way that I can without calling us both old, Liam, but we are older. And I know from other people I've spoken to, Matt Clavelli, good friend of mine in Chicago, he's the same age as me, very, very talented individual, lots of project management experience. Again, really struggling to break into the industry. So I want to touch on ageism, because it's something that I haven't spoke about before, but something that I've clearly seen happen in the industry. Is it a problem, do you think, for people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s wanting to transition in, or is there hope for these people that they've got lots to bring to the table?
Well, I'm in my 50s. I just turned 50 this year.
Why do you look so young?
I too have a 20-year-old, and I have a 5-year-old that I have in between.
Wow.
But I think there are aspects of ageism that we have to combat with. And what makes the difference is really how you approach those interviews, how you approach what value you're bringing to the enterprise. Because a lot of the time, as you pointed out earlier, there are marketable skills we've learned in previous employee that we need to bring to the table, especially an understanding of the business. Oftentimes we have security professionals that are so technically savvy, they have no concept of business. So they walk in the door and they're just this hardline individual that is, you can only do this, you can only follow this, and this is, it's my way or the highway. But they don't understand that there are business drivers that either support or fight those positions, and you need to learn how to navigate those pathways so that you can bring both the business and security together. I, of late, have actually had a bit of an epiphany, and the epiphany is around, where does security really live in the enterprise? A lot of places have security living within the CIO vertical, within the IT vertical. And I've started to think, what if we were to really position security as part of the business unit, not the IT unit, so that security becomes an enabler and we're just feeding, this is how you get business accomplished. These are the ways to make things secure. This is the way to save money. This is the way to get projects done in time. And we're just bringing all of that value to the business. So not to say that that's happening in my environment. It's just a thought that occurred to me that I think that there are ways that we can challenge the way that IT and IT security specifically have been done in the business world and really become enablers.
I completely agree. And in fact, I had a conversation with a guy called Phil Abraham earlier. I'll drop your name in there, Phil, who's the CEO at Cloudface Technologies and the inventor of quantum blockchain. May I just drop in for an interesting chat this afternoon? And he was talking about supply chain. And he thinks that there are masses of room for improvement within that area for cybersecurity. And he thinks it needs a bit of a shake-up. So I thought I'd ask your opinion on that, seeing as I've had a conversation about it today.
You know, let's go back 2 years. What was every IT company and every IT department dealing with 2 years ago?
Absolutely.
SolarWinds.
Yeah.
Supply chain exploitation. Every company was bleeding because of that. Everybody, and Mandiant was firing off alerts, and everybody was trying to determine how compromised they were and where their area of exposure was. And it was just a massive
cluster mess.
Yeah, you kind of read my mind. It was a cluster mess. And then we look at last year. What happened last year? We had Log4j. So it's not just supply chain, it's application development components as well. So it's all of these different things that are being done. And if we're not bringing security and business together, oftentimes we end up with this drift and this delta that almost becomes irreconcilable because we haven't put in the work.
Yeah. There's the problem, isn't it? We haven't put in the work. I think that is the answer. We've got a couple of questions in here. Let me just jump in. We've got this one first. Gregor, agreed on the hands-on experience. For those folks who have the skills but not the certificates, have you got tips on getting past human resources? Good question.
Do you believe in a higher power?
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't have a degree in IT. I don't. I'm actually in the process of getting my degree in IT. And how I've got past IT and past HR is through relationships and networking. I find someone within that organization that I know that is a person of influence. I get to know that person. And then when a position comes available, I ask for that person to refer me into the role.
Yeah,
that is the most effective way.
I heard a stat the other day that over 80% of roles are never advertised because they're filled on connections and referrals. And I think that's bang on. Right, next question. Estek, regarding actual experience, what software or tech do you recommend in a home lab? That's a good question.
You know, I like to think of home labs as being multifaceted. You should have an understanding of all the primary operating systems. You should have a Windows system, you should have a Mac system, you should have a Unix and a Linux system, so that you can understand all of those operating systems to be able to work within them. Because as you gather a skill set and as you work into different aspects of security, you'll need to reference your toolkit for those different things. For instance, a lot of our security tools and a lot of our forensic tooling is in the realm of Linux and different iterations of Linux. So you've got to know how to use the command line. You've got to know how to operate and navigate within those areas. It's also important to understand DevSecOps. You've got to understand how development happens, and you've got to understand how you insert security into that conversation, and how you understand how there are gating processes and how you have those specific conversations. So you've got to understand some coding language. Python's a great language to learn.
That was going to be my next question, because I think Liam mentioned in the chat earlier. So Liam's breaking in, excuse me, and he's learning a code at the moment. Would that be your recommendation for him then?
I think take Python. It gives you such a great understanding. It's an easy language to learn. It's an easy language to expound on. And you will use Python skills in many forensics, many pen testing, many incident handling type solutions require that you have some level of Python scripting ability. So take that tool. It'll open a lot of doors for you. Even if you want to get into some of the other languages, PowerShell within Windows, within the Microsoft troposphere, learn PowerShell. There's such a great amount of capacity that you can learn that way. So I've learned Python and I have some PowerShell skills. So that's kind of the route I took.
So in a leadership position then, how much hands-on stuff do you do now? Is it very minimal, or are you a hands-on type leader, Craig?
I hate that I don't get to do as much as I want. But that's also the evidence of me raising up really good people around me. So I've replicated myself in a few other people around me so that I don't need to be hands-on and I can trust the work of those people. And then if I need to drop in just to kind of get my hands dirty for a little bit, they allow me to come in and play around and see what I can
They humor you.
They humor me is exactly it. Because
come on, Craig, in you come.
I'm more dangerous than effective at this point, to be fair. Because I've been away from the keyboard in this area for almost 10 years.
But that's why you have people in your team who are competent and who you trust to do that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. Right. Next question. I think it was Richard. Where is it? I'm losing them. Here we go. So back to those transitioning, trying to break in and managing expectations. In your opinion, what's the best way to manage expectations of both those trying to get in or transitioning?
You know, the immediate thought is another Steve Jobs quote. And Steve Jobs, and I'm going to butcher the quote, but the quote goes along these lines, that I don't want to tell my employees what to do. I want my employees to be telling me what to do. That's why I've hired you. And that's the mindset that I want you to take when you're trying to transition or break into security, is I am coming into this organization and I'm going to benefit you with these skill sets, and I'm going to help you move the needle in these areas. It's all in the presentation and the sale. It is 90% salesmanship. It's how you sell yourself. It's how you sell the value that you're going to bring to the organization. Because if you can immediately get that hiring manager to realize you're motivated, you're capable, and you are here to be part of the team, that opens doors immediately.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for people perhaps with similar backgrounds to myself who have been in sales or maybe professional sales or relationship development, but want to move away from that and want to get into an industry they've always had a passion for, what would be a good way to look at that skill set apart from sales within cybersecurity?
You know, the one thing that sales does is it gives you relationships. It goes back to kind of the hiring question. Is having been in sales, you have relationships with people in different industries and different verticals. And as you build on those relationships, it opens doors. And sales is an avenue for that. God, I can't really think of another avenue where you have that level of reach. Sales really does open doors.
Well, it does. I mean, I think back to my journey in and setting up the InfoSec Live community just 15 months ago now. We're up to nearly 4,000 members. It's grown exponentially. I've spent not one penny on marketing it. It's all been through word of mouth. And it's been all about communicating with people, having conversations with people, and spending your time listening to other people as well. And you mentioned one of my favorite terminologies earlier. I think it was active listening you mentioned. And there's too many conversations going on, Craig, and not enough dialogue, I think, in the world in general. And having a dialogue with someone, for those that don't know what that means, I think it's a combination of two Greek words, dia and log, which basically means to gain an understanding. So you have a common understanding. So basically you're both having a conversation about something that you're interested in. You're actually listening to what that person's saying and thinking about that, rather than just sitting here waiting for that person to shut up talking so you can make a comment. And I think that can be one of the best skills that people can learn.
Absolutely agree. I mean, if you can't listen, no one's going to listen to you.
No, correct.
Because it becomes readily apparent that you're not participating in the conversation. And that, just ask my wife. Anytime that she's talking to me and I am ready with my rebuttal, she knows right away. She knows we're not in dialogue. She knows that we are in combat. and that becomes combative really quick, and we don't resolve the situation. And we have to learn. And security, let me tell you, one of your toughest things you're going to do in security, and that is winning people over. You have to bring people to your side of the conversation, and to do that, you have to listen. You have to know where their rebuttal lives. You have to know what experience caused them to feel this way, why they are resisting your initiative. You have to take the time to actually meet and get to that pool of shared meaning and pool of shared understanding, so that you can move forward, or you're never going to get anywhere.
No, I completely agree. I'm doing something whilst listening to you then, which is a really bad example of active listening. It's me trying to multitask, which isn't possible. I've got a course, a free course in the InfoSec Live community. I'm just going to get the link for it here. It's on soft skills. It's only take you about an hour and a half, 2 hours to go through. If anyone's interested, it's free to access. You should be able to get it through that link there. And it talks about active listening, talks about body language, it talks about empathy, it talks about all the things that Craig and I have been talking about. And I think we're not all natural communicators. I get that. But I also get that anyone can learn enough to get through an interview and start to do some relationship development. And again, it's like anything, whether it's coding, trying to do a reverse shell, which I never quite managed to crack, or having a decent conversation with someone. They're all skills that you can practice.
I can tell you something. I can teach someone a skill. I can't teach someone to people. I can't teach someone how to relate, to be relatable. I can't really teach those skills. Those are skills that someone has to work on. Those are skills that someone has to develop for themselves. I can't just give you a book and say, here's 10 points on being a great public speaker. Yes,
this is where a multiple choice exam doesn't help, I feel.
Correct. You have to really have those skill sets. And I oftentimes I hire people based on their ability to be a team member. I hire them on their ability to communicate. I hire them on how personable they are, and how much of the soft skills they're actually going to bring to my team. And sometimes I hire the candidate that doesn't have all the qualifications, simply because I'd rather hire a underskilled team player than an overskilled asshole.
Do you know what? I had this conversation on a show last week about whether would you rather hire someone who's sat at a screen checking logs every day for the last 10 years with no desire to progress their career, or would you rather have someone who's got limited experience but a desire and a passion to learn? I know which one I'd rather have in my team. No offense to anyone out there who's sitting there watching logs, by the way.
Absolutely.
I noticed that Richard Foster's jumped in. Richard, great to see you in here, and amazing to meet you at Black Hat last week. And as he rightly says, listening is key to communication, and it really, really is. And Valentina, who is a scholarship member in InfoSec Live community, we're funding a few people to go through some exams and pathways at the moment. Very, very talented young lady from Nigeria who loves writing. And as she says here, starting a cyber blog next year and currently thinking to break in as a cybersecurity technical writer. But she'd love some different directions or advice. Any advice for Valentina?
You know, you're kind of going the right way. You know, the great thing about a blog is it's you just communicating and speaking to people. And as you perfect your craft, as you perfect your knowledge, and you perfect your blog, it'll create opportunities for you to write more and more information. Take courses on technical writing. I mean, there are tons of them out there. LinkedIn is full of them. And just learn those skill sets that'll just help you communicate that effectively, and then just do it. I mean, the biggest regret we often have at the end of our lives is not the things we did, but the things we didn't do. So jump in and do it.
Mine's going to be a mix of both with my background. we won't go into that. The other thing I'd say, Valentina, is a lot of the CISOs who we have on the show and a lot of the people that I talk to in the industry complain about the narrative out there from vendors and the fact that it needs to change. Maybe you could be part of that agency for change by helping them change the narrative and actually engage with the leaders on items and topics they want to talk about, rather than keep flogging silver bullet solutions, because unfortunately there's a lot of them out there.
I mean, we are inundated as security leaders by sales pitches on a daily basis. Of I have the new whiz bang tool that's going to solve all of your problems, and it doesn't, and it can't. And we need people to be able to. You're right, Simon. We need people to talk from the practical perspective of this is the problem we're trying to solve. It's not going to be company X or company Y. It's going to be solution X or solution Y that we need to pursue, and that's a great avenue to pursue.
It is, and I think from my limited experience in the industry, I mean, I've only been in less than 2 years now, but the amount of noise from vendors on silver bullet solutions is unbelievable, especially when it seems that as an industry we're still not doing the basics right. Is that because of the noise of the vendors shouting about what we should be doing over here when we should be looking a little bit closer to home and doing the basics, or is there something deeper than that, Craig?
You know,
can't blame the vendors for everything, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I can't blame them. You're right. You can't blame them. They're in the business of selling products. That's what they're in the business of doing, and it behooves them to make a sales pitch that makes sense and produces an outcome. However, too often, all the communication that's coming from these folks is well, let me go back and I'll come back to answer. My biggest fear on LinkedIn is when someone asks me to connect on LinkedIn, because I can almost count it down.
Until the next message comes through.
Accept, and then I count down 10 minutes, and I've got hey, I see you're this person. Have you considered this whiz bang tool? Do you have time in the next couple days to meet? Number one, no, I don't have time in the next couple days. I'm booked out a month in advance. I don't have the time in the next couple days. And second of all, I don't have time to entertain your hour-long pitch on your sale. Can you give me, I'll take a 15-minute slot. Tell me the good and dirty about your product in 15 minutes, and we can have a conversation. I don't have time for a demo. I don't have time for
again, Craig, right? It's back to building relationships with people and having people in a position of trust. And someone who flaps up in your inbox on a Thursday morning at 10 o'clock asking you for a quick call about their product, well, how do they know if your product's going to fit what you're looking to do? It's back to what you said earlier. I mean, we used to call it fact finding in financial services, where you collate hard and soft facts about the client. And it's no different in this industry. You know, before you start trying to sell any solution, surely there's an argument for trying to understand or know your customer a little bit more. And I think that's why we're seeing a bit of a rise in what I would call broker consultants in this industry, who have been in the industry a bit of time, bit of experience, a lot of experience and education around the vendor piece, who are now advising CISOs on which people to speak to at the right time. And I wonder if, you know, the infancy of the industry still, maybe we're seeing a growing another career path for people who want to pursue a more consultancy based position.
I think that's accurate. But to circle back to what we were talking about earlier, one of the things that intrigues me about what you're talking about is that there is this huge gap right now, of course.
Yeah.
But also, I heard a conversation. I saw a blog a couple of days ago, and one of the questions asked was, does a vCISO need to have been a CISO in the past? Do they need to have had that experience? And it was an interesting write-up around the skill set that's needed to be brought to the table. And similarly to what you were talking about, these brokers and different components that are facilitating who get to talk to the CISO and reach out and who has reach into those environments. I think really the security is growing up. Security is maturing into the space where it's about a culture of security that we're bringing into enterprises, and we need effective gatekeepers to ensure that we're having the right conversations, because like I said earlier, we don't have the time to meet with everybody. We don't have the time to find out about every tool. And my team is focused on deploying the last tool that I bought. How can I go ahead and bring in the next whiz-bang tool to tell them what to do? Because it just takes time.
And only use 10% of that one, like you were the last one.
No, right. And that is unfortunately true because of the proliferation of tools and companies. I mean, cybersecurity is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's gonna year-over-year growth is unbelievable in cybersecurity. It's guaranteed income. People are just throwing money at these problems that exist for entities, and it's going to continue to be that way. What needs to happen is teams like myself need to grow up and make a stand and go, we're not going to be swayed by every wind and every storm that blows our way. We're going to hold our path. We've selected our tools. We trust in our tools. We trust in our people, and we're going to do the work that our mandate calls us to do. And that's what we're here to do.
Do you bit of name dropping here? I met this guy while we're talking about tools and tech stacks. I was at Black Hat London last week, and I met Sunil Yu, the guy who put this together.
Okay.
And he did a very insightful talk about where he sees the threats next year, which I won't steal his thunder because I think he's going to be coming out with a video about it soon. But it was completely opposite to everyone else that was sitting on there. And his cyber defense matrix, if you've ever used that, I think from a layperson's point of view, makes so much sense, giving you kind of a snapshot, especially if you're a CISO joining an organization that's got, I suppose, like heavy stacks in place and stuff all over the place. It's a great way to give you that visual representation of where everything is. And of the few ones I've seen of these that are completed, there seems to be an awful lot of bunching around certain areas with lots of different bits of technology. And you're not telling me that they're all being used or utilized effectively. It just seems crazy.
Yeah. And I think every security group is going to be honest about the fact that they have purchased a software that has become shelfware, that we've spent money, somebody talked to the right person at the right time and took advantage of a situation, and that was not the right buy at that time. We have a situation that I'm dealing with right now where we have some tools that we bought that are just sitting on a shelf somewhere, and no one's put them in place, and they've been sitting on a shelf for 3 years, and they're about to be end of life, and we haven't even been able to implement them. So, I mean, it just happens. Initiatives change, focus changes, funding changes. So security is constantly in flux. So be like water, according to Bruce.
Be fluid. Oh no, I completely agree. And Rebecca, I'd love to have a chat with you, Rebecca. If you get a chance, drop me a DM afterwards because I want to know more about encrypted VR portal systems for a start. Because I've been playing on my son's Oculus VR headset and making myself feel sick on roller coasters the last day. So maybe there's some information there you want to tell me about. I want to just ask you one last question because I know both you and I have got meetings straight after this. So I'll stop rambling on. I want to talk about the difference between the private sector and the public sector quickly before you go, because you've worked in both. What's more challenging?
Depends.
Yeah.
And here's what I'll say. And this goes back into what we were talking about. I worked for a company called Marketo. So I'm a salesperson's worst nightmare because I understand the algorithm that they're using to try to communicate with me. So I understand the platform that they're using, and I can tell that it's Marketo when I get the information. But there are challenges in that space because you're trying to sell products. So you have to create tools, and your security team is really focused on outward-facing security and how we make our product available to the marketplace.
Yes.
In the public sector, it's different in that now we're dealing with a limited funding base. We're dealing with challenges around being able to pay the going rate for highly skilled employees. And we're having to upskill our employees using threadbare budgets. And we're having to find ways to get by and squeeze by and do whatever we can to get security to be effective on a shoestring budget. I mean, most companies say that your security budget should be a minimum of 5% of your overall budget. I'd like to challenge you to find any state budget within the United States where
Yeah,
security is funded at above 3 or 4%. I
I
mean,
completely
that's
agree. You have
just
to get creative with your cost centers, Craig, I imagine,
absolutely.
as well.
Absolutely. And you have to find ways to spend your money wisely. You have to be very cautious because you want to make sure that you're bringing the right people at the right time with the right incentives
Yeah.
to be part of the team.
No, absolutely. Craig, thank you so much. Let's wrap things up there. I know we've got a couple of minutes left, but I don't want to ask you another question and then you be late for your next meeting. I hugely appreciate you taking the time to come on today. I also hugely appreciate everyone jumping in the chat. It really, really does make these more engaging. I've dropped my email in there. If anyone does want to connect, please do. That'd be great. One more thing. We have got lots more events this week. I've written them down because otherwise I'll forget. Tomorrow at 11:30 Eastern Time, 4:30 GMT, we've got a 2022 retrospective with Clint Bedungan and Aaron Shabib, who are the creators of the ThreatGen platform, going live on InfoSec Live. Thursday, next episode of the CISO Experience with George Shizaz. Very exciting guy who worked for the European Space Agency. So let's get your space questions ready for that one. Followed by How to Hire Cyber Talent on Thursday as well with Patrick Gillespie. And on Friday, Dorota Kozlowska, who's just won or been nominated for 40 Under 40, is coming on to talk about how to hire cyber talent. So everyone, please do like and subscribe if you'd enjoyed the content. Craig, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope that we can catch up again sometime soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much, Simon. Thank
Take
you,
care.
everybody.
See you later, everyone.